I was like, what should I do for my internship? And they were like, man, why don't you try photography? I have gravitated myself around people that have taken the time to be like, hey, Slusher, do it like this, or Slusher, hey, don't do this, or this is the right way to do it. You know, everybody needs reassurance, like, hey, you're doing the right thing, you're stepping in the right direction, and you got to pay attention to what's happening around you. Like, you know, if I'm doing the right thing, there's going to be telltale signs that you're doing the right thing. Good things are going to happen. You might have some obviously you're going to have some bumps in the road and stuff like that, but you still got to pull your boots up and keep going every day.
Welcome back to the Wealthy Cowboy Show. Today we got Scott Slusher on, and he's got a pretty cool, interesting story, and it's cool how he's kind of stayed in the Western industry and also built a business around it, kind of parallel and interwoven into it, I guess. And y'all probably seen him around a lot, seen his work around a lot, but we'll get into all that. How's it going?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah. Nice to finally meet you.
Yeah. I know we're around the same spots all the time, Western Heritage and the Ranch Rodeo Finals, all that stuff, but never actually talked to you.
Never met before. I'm looking forward to this.
Let's get into your background. Like, how'd you grow up? Did you grow up in this industry, or how'd that work?
I did not grow up in this industry. My dad was a professor for Oklahoma State University, and he started in 1978 the breeding ranch for Oklahoma State University. And so he bred thoroughbred horses for basically the university. And so, you know, it was go out and hang out with him in the summertime, or, you know, if I had an off day from school or something like that, then I would go hang out with him at that ranch. And he hired like one local cowboy that would get horseback and do stuff, but it was all brood mares and stallions. And
but you were around horses a lot.
Yes, always around horses. I never had a horse growing up. My first horse I bought when I was about 30.
Really?
Yes.
So you were around it the whole time, but you never owned one. Did you get to, or I guess none of those were like riding horses or anything?
No, there was one horse that it was an old paint horse that was there on the ranch that my dad would saddle for me, and I would buck every time, and he would ride it and buck it and get it going, and then he'd be like, all right, it won't do it again, so here you go. And so I never saddled a horse until like the age of like 25. And so the first time, like when I started taking pictures and doing all kind of stuff and hanging out with my buddies and cowboys and stuff like that, then I would call and be like, hey, don't saddle that horse, and just let me do it when I get there, because, you know, I've never done it before. I want to learn how to do all this kind of stuff. And so it was just, you know, just slowly getting into it and doing that kind of stuff. I had a grandfather that was a rancher up in Kansas, like Council Grove, and we would always go up there, but he would never let me. He would be the same. He would just let me sit on a horse and to be tied to a trailer. And so, I mean, as a kid, that's why I do this, because I've always wanted
living your dream,
living my dream. You know,
I love that. I love talking to people like that too, because I always say, like, I always took it for granted, because I went through stints where, like, I was gonna be, you know, a football player, or I went through like a military stage, and then like a motocross extreme sports stage, and all this stuff, and kind of went off on different paths, and just always took the horses and the cattle and ranching and the Western stuff kind of for granted. So it's awesome to talk to people that had, I mean, you were around it, but like people that had nothing to do with it, or from the city, and it's like, man, I just saw a horse and just fell in love with it, and that's all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then another point there too, like what you're talking about, is like, I think I see this in like, we're new parents, but I see that parenting, and like people older than me, like they're in this lifestyle, but they protect their kids like a bunch, like, you know, like don't want them to get hurt. So don't ride that bucking horse, don't saddle them. I'll get them ready for you, and then you can ride them around a little bit, whatever. Stay tied to the trailer or whatever. But how you really learn is like going through the whole experience and like failing. Failing is going to teach you more than anything.
Yeah. And my grandfather I'd wear, you know, like a pair of like, I mean, big old Rowell Spurs. And my grandpa was like, you can't get on any horse wearing those. And I was like, well, I wish I could be like, well, take them off me and put me on a horse and just let me ride behind you and teach me what you know, or, anything. And I think I don't know. I kind of think that my dad didn't really like being around, he liked the horses and the animals and all kind of stuff, but he didn't really like being, I think he does now, but like, I don't know. My grandfather was kind of like your old cowboy. He was just real rough. And my dad's kind of the same way, like just like a rough old cowboy.
Yeah.
That's just, yell at you any second that he can and for doing something wrong and stuff like that. So I think that's why, it wasn't anything that I did. I think it was just the relationship that my grandfather and my dad had. I think that's what that was.
And probably a little bit like that, like taking it for granted and not like, and it's too, like it's different to like when you're ranching or something, trying to get a job done. It's like somebody doesn't know what they're doing. They're in the way. So it's like you got to go out of your way to teach somebody something, you know?
But that's what's great about where I am is like I have gravitated myself around people that have taken the time to be like, hey, Slusher, do it like this, or Slusher, hey, don't do this, or this is the right way to do it. You know, like the first time I went to the Sixes, like True Burson was like, hey, you never been around any of this stuff before? And I was like, no. And he's like, come on, let's do this. I mean, it's like, the way they used to do it, catching them in the round pen, at first thing in the morning and bringing them to you. And, if you stand in a certain position and get all that stuff going and everything like that. So, I mean, it's the real deal. And so, a person like the Dusty and True and all those guys, I mean, man, and, just anybody that would take the time to show me the right way to do it is highly in my book.
Yeah. And I think most people are like, if you come from a learning standpoint, because I've been, everybody learns at some point, whether you learn as a kid or as an adult. And then like, if you get around some decent guys, like some people are just dicks, but if you're come in there like and quiet and you're like, willing, I guess, to do whatever, that makes me want to help somebody out, whether you know how to do it or you're going to do it wrong a few times or whatever, as long as you're willing and able and not like cocky, strutting around or something.
I usually, the first time I go to a ranch, I don't even really say anything for the first like day. I kind of just find I stay in my spot and I, figure things out, and I don't ask a lot of questions. I don't tell anybody what to do. I'm just kind of here to just kind of blend in and just be a part of what's happening and stuff like that. And, like somebody be like, hey, Slusher, you can tell us what to do. You're here to take pictures. I'm like, we'll figure that out when it comes to it. But right now I just I want the guys that are here to know that I know what's going on and that I'm here to be a part of this and work along with everybody and then take pictures while I'm doing that. Cause that's where all the really good pictures come in, is when they don't even know I'm there. Yeah. That's the good stuff.
Doing your deal and you get it captured.
Yeah.
DX Trailer Sales is based out of Lubbock, Texas, and it is definitely not just a trailer dealership. If you are involved in the Western way of life, and if you're listening to this show, you probably are, then they have something you need. From trailers for a day working cowboy to a full-time cattle hauler to hay trailers for a farmer or rancher to arena drags, rope and chutes, and feeders for the rodeo cowboy or cowgirl. They also deal in every kind of hay any of your animals could ever need. Literally anything you need, farming, ranching, or rodeoing, they're going to have something for you, and it's going to be at a super affordable price. Besides all that, everyone you deal with there is super friendly and very helpful. So check out DX Trailer Sales on Facebook or dxtrailers.com and tell them you came from the Wealthy Cowboy Show. I remember one time when we were filming that show, we were actually, we were working this set of cows, and there was a gate that they had to go into this trap, and they set the camera up right in the gate. And they're like, you got to move. You have to get a different angle.
Yeah. That's why a lot of, it makes it great for like, an American Hat ad, because I'm usually behind a cowboy, horseback or something like that. And, all the good stuff is on the back of an American Hat. So it's like, here it is, that shot, or, I might get around them and come around or something like that. But, it's you gotta figure out the right place to be in at the right time too, because you don't want to be in the way. I've only been yelled at once. So.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to get yelled at again.
So let's go back to how it all evolved. Like you grew up there at Oklahoma State on that farm. Then like how did you progress from there?
So I went to so in 1978 my dad started that ranch, and then in 98 when I graduated high school, he got a job in United Arab Emirates and became the ruler Dubai's horse breeder for 9 years. And so I went over there twice, and so basically no one was looking over my back, basically just like, hey, and my parents growing up, they never really told me to really do anything. They just said, they just kind of were just, you do your thing and we'll support you no matter what. So I was pretty much a bum basically for about like 3 years of my college life. And so I grew up at the Wormy Dog Saloon and, and got a doctorate in drinking beer and stuff like that. So I was having dinner. My mom came back from overseas, and I was having dinner with my mom and my sister in Tulsa. And my sister was telling a story about one of her friends' sons was at Art Institute of Dallas going to fashion design school. And I was like, and something just kind of clicked in my head. I was like, that's strange. So I listened to that story, and I went back home to Stillwater, and I got online and registered. And within 2 weeks, I moved to Dallas and went to fashion design school, and never sewed, never done any of that kind of stuff, and did that for 2 years, and had a fashion collection. And that's actually where I met my wife. I think it was more about meeting my wife than really anything. And my wife was real involved with the like the behind the scenes, because you had to help on the weekends or during the week with like fashion shows that were happening with, at the World Trade Center or anything that was going on around there and stuff like that. And so I didn't really have too many friends in Dallas. And so I was like, I'll help. And so I just said yes. And so it came, meeting these people. And so when it came time for my internship, I was like, what? It was my wife, and then my wife at that time, she's a clothing stylist, and she was working with another stylist at that time. She's now her own stylist and everything like that. But I was like, what should I do for my internship? And they were like, man, why don't you try photography? Like, at that time we weren't engaged or anything like that, but we were pretty serious dating. And her brother's is a stylist, and then she's a stylist, and like, it doesn't make any sense to have 3 stylists in one family. So why don't you try something else? I was like, okay. So I called, they told me 2 photographers to call. The one was Jeff Stevens, who's a phenomenal photographer in Dallas. And then the other one was, his name was Paul Morgan. He's passed away, but they said he was the hardest person to work for. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to call him. He sounds like a challenge or something like that. And so I called him, and he was like, yeah, I'll take some free labor, whatever. And so come to find out, he had a little ranchette south of Dallas and needed help with that. And I was like, he didn't have any cows or anything like that. He just had hay and, and whatnot, and stuff like that. So I was like, man, I can help you with any of that kind of stuff. So I started, learning photography through, and this was back in the film days. So he was still shooting film at this time. And so, I learned, every nook and cranny I could of that studio. And it just turned into just more and more and more and more, and just helping him with all that kind of stuff. I worked for him for 3 years. And I mean, I'm a really good assistant when it comes to anything. Like I'm a good all around kind of person, but when it comes to like helping people, I'm like, hey, I can read kind of what you need next kind of person. So it's like, hey, I can help you with this, I can help you with that. So I started taking pictures, started doing all kinds of stuff with a film camera, and he kind of gave me some assignments. I never went to photography school, just basically learned it. And it was about that same time where I was like, you know what, and for like a commercial job that I do, it takes about, I can't just do it by myself. You got to have a stylist, hair and makeup. You got to have, someone to run this and somebody to run that, a digital tech, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are making everything happen. And at first, I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but at first I was like, taking pictures of models and doing all kind of stuff because there's a lot.
That's what I was going to ask, if it was all fashion city.
It was. That's because that's what I knew. Like his one client was J.C. Penney's, and it was every day that he was shooting J.C. Penney's, and they would be models it would be Victoria's Secret models. It would be, J.C. Penney's had a ton of money back in those days, and they would fly somebody in for an hour and pay them like an obscene amount of money just for an hour. It was. And he did a lot of lifestyle stuff, but it was a lot of lingerie too stuff. So it was a lot of fun. It was interesting to see all that behind the scenes and hanging out. But I did that. I was a photo assistant at Digital Tech for a lot of years until I started it was one of those deals where you're kind of like, how do I make that leap to being a photographer? And you would ask photographers like, how did you become a photographer? And everybody would be like, well, it just happened. They would have little stories to it. And even people ask me today, like, how'd you become a photographer? I was like, it just happened. It's just like anything else. You just have to
take a risk.
Yeah, you gotta put one foot in front of the other and just take that leap and take the criticism that comes with it or the positive that comes back to it. And there was a lot of positive that came from the pictures that I took, even if it was models. But you're kind of a small fish in a big pond in the fashion world because there's so many of them. Like, how do you differentiate? How do you make your own style in a world like that? Because there's so many fashion photographers. And so it was one of those deals where it was like, all right, I need something I can do by myself. I can do that and make some money, but I need to be doing something else too. And like you said, action sports. I had some buddies that were wakeboarders. And so I was like, I'll take pictures of wakeboarders. I'll sit on the tube, put my camera in a water housing. I bought a boat. I bought a wakeboarding boat and, and just started immersing myself in that. And no offense to any wakeboarders, but they like to get up early, but then that's about it. And if it's windy, they don't want to do anything. So it's kind of finicky. So I was like, I don't know if wakeboarding is kind of my gig. And I didn't really get a lot of I couldn't sell a lot of that kind of stuff. And so, my wife's from the Munster area, like Munster and Gainesville. And so we'd always go to German Fest every year with a group of friends. And the camp next to us where we always camped, it was a group of guys, and one of them was Jeff Besner, and he was a cowboy at the R.A. Brown Ranch at that time. And I just met him through some of my other friends from North Texas. And one day I called him and I was like, hey, you think I could come and hang out with you for a week and take pictures and get horseback? And he was like, hell yeah, Slusher, that'd be great. And so I called one of my buddies and I was like, hey, can I borrow your truck and trailer and a horse and a saddle and all that stuff? And he was like, yeah, you can. And so I went and hung out at the R.A. Brown Ranch for a week. And that was literally the first. I took some pictures. I had some buddies that were around the Gainesville area that worked cattle and stuff like that. And I was getting horseback and I wouldn't really take a camera and everything like that. I was just learning everything, trying to figure everything out and stuff like that. And then it just started kind of happening. About that same time, Instagram came out. And so that's where it all just exploded from there.
You started posting it on there?
Yeah. Because it was an outlet. Before Instagram, there wasn't really an outlet to show your pictures. You would go to a portfolio showing or you'd enter like a contest or something like that to show people kind of what you did. Facebook was kind of there, but it was more,
From what I remember on Facebook, it was all written posts, when I got on in when I went to college, in 2009 or 10, and I just remember it being, kind of written posts. It's almost like maybe Twitter. I don't have Twitter, or X, but I think about it like that, kind of just updating throughout the day or something like that.
But in Instagram, my Instagram is still kind of the same way, where it's just I gravitate towards a really nice picture that I like to see. I don't really scroll through reels or anything like that. But get on a dumb subject of Instagram.
Were you just hooked after that first going out on the ranch and you're
100%. Just that is the reason that I do it, is because I that's the first thing I think about is how can I get horseback today?
I wonder what you think you were just born that way to think outside the box because you the typical, I guess the typical way you would probably have gone. You went to the fashion deal and then got on photography, you would have just fell in line to either stay working with a fashion photographer or do your own fashion photography. But you were like, this is too much competition. I want to get outside the box somewhere that's underserved. Is that like, I wonder where that came from.
I don't know. Like, I'm always been kind of, I don't know. I look back at my childhood and I think back and, and, you know, I never really, in Stillwater where I grew up is a college town. It's not, I mean, without the students, it's probably 40,000. It's probably more than that now. But when I was a kid, it was probably 40,000, maybe 30,000 people. And I never had a job inside the city limits of Stillwater. So I always was creeping myself out further and further to get out of town and all kind of stuff. And so I don't know, like anybody always like, just like you reach out to me and said, hey, do you want to be on this podcast? I say yes. I always say yes.
Just say yes to opportunity.
Say
See
yes
where
to
it takes you.
Yeah, because you never know who you're going to meet, what's going to turn out from it. It could be something that you're just kind of like, that wasn't the greatest thing. But at the same time, I did something that maybe somebody else, you know, I don't know if you've had any other photographers on here or anything like that, but you know, who knows, you might have another photographer on here. So, you know, it's one of those deals where you're just like, I'm going to say yes. And a lot of photographers that I looked up to in my world, in like the commercial world there in like the Dallas DFW area, there's a lot of great photographers. And they would come up to me and be like, hey, what you're doing is like, it's different than what everybody else is doing. At that time, because I was taking pictures of people doing something. It wasn't like, hey, stand there and put your hand in your pocket and then look this direction. You know what I mean? I was catching people doing what they were doing. And I'm not saying I was the first one to ever do this, but I just kind of
wasn't as popular back then.
I guess. I don't know. I was just doing things that were authentic. And I try to be the most authentic person that I can be. And that's just being Scott Slusher.
Yeah.
Like my long hair, you know, a mustache, whatever, you know, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't.
Have y'all seen the prices of bulls these days? Just a decent one at the sale barn cost is crazy. It might be time to look at leasing your bulls instead of buying them. 100th Meridian Ranching specializes in leasing out quality bulls. This can save a lot of headache with dealing with bulls and all that, and also help out your bottom line. They deliver all across the country and have several different kinds of bulls to fit your specific operation. Check out 100th Meridian Ranching on Facebook, and you can also check out their website, 100thmeridianranching.com.
And I've that opportunity, like saying yes, I've told people that all the time, like, and from what, like, everybody I've studied everything, it's kind of how it progresses. Like at first, just say yes to everything because you don't know what direction you need to go. You don't know the right people yet. Just say yes to everything. And then you'll start trying to kind of narrow down the direction you want to go. And then to get to the next level, you got to start saying no and then just like really focus in.
Yes. Sometimes you do have to say no.
Or you could keep saying yes and like you probably have a very interesting life.
Yeah.
You may not build like one big thing, but you have a cool life, a lot of stories. But all the big like people that have built big companies and stuff, they said a lot of yeses and then get down and you say no all the time unless it's the one thing, you know. But that's cool that you, like, I just think it's real cool that you, that the way that you got to it, you know, you're like, this could have been the path. Most people would have took that path, and you're like a fork in the road, and you took the one less traveled. And then it's cool that like pretty quick it seems like you figured out like this is it right here.
But I mean, it was a lot of people giving me that reassurance, like, you know, everybody needs reassurance. Like, hey, you're doing the right thing. You're stepping in the right direction. And you got to pay attention to what's happening around you. Like, you know, if I'm doing the right thing, there's going to be telltale signs that you're doing the right thing. Good things are going to happen. You might have some obviously you're going to have some bumps in the road and stuff like that, but you still have to, got to pull your boots up and keep going every day.
So did you see a way to turn that into a job, like to monetize that? You're like, I love going out to ranches. Like, this is the thing. Did you see like a business that could be built around it?
100%. It's, you know, I had, you know, I try to do the broad scale of everything. Like a client from JCPenney's to Mary Kay to, Cowboys and Indians magazine. Like that's kind of more fashion based. Mary Kay's kind of not really fashion based. I did 2 jobs with them that ended up being like moving billboards in Times Square. And I equate it to speed dating is what it was, is I had to shoot like 80 women a day and on a white background or a black background. And it was depending on what they were wearing. And I kind of made that decision, but it was like, okay, how can I make somebody comfortable in basically 30 seconds before I have to take their picture? Because a lot of them were shaking. They were so nervous. And so I wore a cowboy hat. So I'd take my hat off and be like, hey, my name's Scott Slusher. It's nice to meet you. Oh, where are you from? Oh, Elko, Nevada? No way. I know Elko. There's a poetry gathering. Oh, yeah, you know so-and-so, you know so-and-so. Okay, let's take a picture. And so it was basically just that for 2 weeks. And it ended up, I'd never put that on my list of goals, is to have something in Times Square. Never thought that would happen. And that's the beauty of life. It's like, man, you set your goals, and then those goals that you don't even set, that's the mountaintop of those, that's the good stuff. Mm-hmm. That's the good stuff.
Yeah, because you don't even know, like, you're not even open to like what could happen, the possibilities that could happen. So like you're like, I want to make this amount of money, or I want to lose this amount of weight, or do this or whatever. And then like you start getting into that world, and then like all of a sudden you've surpassed that, and it's like the sky's the limit.
Yeah. And I had it was a art director for Mary Kay that called me. I was actually horseback at the Spade Ranch up in Canadian, and she called me while we were out working cattle, and I was like, hey, what's up? And she was like, hey, do you think you could do this? And it was basically like, she just told me like, you're gonna have to take pictures of 80 women a day. And I was like, for 2 weeks. And I was like, yeah. I said, yes. Like what's the worst thing can happen? You know what I mean? And so, just put yourself out there and see what'll happen. So, I mean, it's listening to those guys out there, those realtors out there, it's like they were talking about the same thing. It's like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to step out and do something. And do I know how to do it? Maybe, maybe not, but I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
And take that chance. So,
yeah, I've heard that before. Like, and I did a little mini episode on it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Brad Lee, a guy I follow, he talks about, he's like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, you're going to die? Probably not. I mean, if you're talking about jumping out of a plane or something, maybe, but like going and talking to a girl, or going and talking to a possible client or whatever, what's the worst that's going to happen? They say no, and then you just go on about your day. And I related it back to what made me get to thinking about it was the other day I was watching Happy Gilmore, and he's like, he gets on the tour, and last place gets like 10 grand still. And he's like, what? Last place gets 10 grand? That's awesome. And he's just like so excited about getting last place. You know?
You never know. And that's the same thing with going to ranches or being around some cowboys that I've never been around or anything like that. I obviously look like myself, but you ask me to do something, I'm definitely going to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll put the camera down. I don't care. I'll get to work. It doesn't bother me any.
Yeah.
So
how did you go about, so you're doing some fashion stuff too, and bouncing back and forth with the ranching stuff. How did the ranching stuff, like how did you get down into that? Were you just cold calling people, or just networking? And then
networking. A lot of my buddies are all cowboys. So, like the first time I went to the Sixes, it was Tyler Terry. It was like, hey, call Reggie. He was the manager at that time. And so I was like, I called Reggie and was like, hey, mind if I come out and stay for a couple of days, bring my TP and all this kind of stuff? And he was like, yeah, and he would, all right, so-and-so, at that time it wasn't Charlie Ferguson, but Skip was the cook. And so I had to meet Skip in town at the supply house because he was getting stuff, and I followed him back out there. And, it was just that same thing. It was, okay, well, you would think I would get invited to a lot of ranches, like, hey, Slusher, why don't you come out and do that? I get invited to some, but I have to invite myself to a lot of places.
And I bet it's like just people, like, I don't think about it sometimes, to That's a whole thing, like on content creation, is thinking about capturing it, you know, to having somebody there to capture it.
Yeah.
And it's cool to look back, I mean, and have that.
I set up a lot of stuff. Like a lot of my clients, I'll be like, hey, what do you guys think about this idea? You know, what if I, supply this and supply that, and we go out and we take pictures of, all the cowboys, doing this and doing that with boots, hats, jeans, with all that kind of stuff. A lot of I'm hustling to make things happen and I get a lot of phone calls like, Tacovas or any of the big stuff that comes along. All of it's big, but it's a lot of, if nothing's happening, then I go do something, because I can be sitting in my office working on a computer, but that's an editing stuff and update my website or getting stuff ready for Instagram. But at the same time, it's like the stuff that's going to make me get more work is me being out there and taking more pictures and getting more content or more stuff that I can show people what I'm doing. And so that's what I believe. At least I say that, and maybe that's what makes it happen. I don't really know, but the more I'm out there getting things going and doing things and working on my craft and everything like that, taking pictures, or I'll go hang out with some buddies that'll help me with team roping or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's just those things that if I can learn, then that's going to make better pictures. Mm-hmm. And like the last big job I did was Tacovas. They were like, well, who should we use? And I was like, how about we use, this set of cowboys, because if we can be around them, I know for a fact that every detail is going to be covered. Your video person doesn't have to worry about, hey, is the tack right? Is he wearing this right? Is he doing this right? All those guys are going to be doing everything to their top cowboys, and they're going to be doing the right thing. So you can basically be running the camera and get anything you want, and it can be used for commercial use.
Yes, it cracks me up to see like an ad out there and it's like not real. You can tell like the bridle's wrong, something in there is wrong, and you can tell like this is so.
But at the same time, you have to make something. You have to make something pretty. You have to make something nice, and sometimes it always can't be that way. You watch movies, you watch shows, and you see ads, you see all that kind of stuff, and for the most part, you kind of have to do a little give and take with all that kind of stuff, because I've been around it, and you're like, oh man, this would be a lot better if this or that. But at the same time, it's like, man, we gotta work through this and get the right thing. So
that's what, like I was telling you earlier, my kind of experience, and they were wanting to set up some cheesy stuff, and we're like, what, really? And they're like, trust us. Like 99% of the people don't even know, if it would be right or wrong. There'll be guys that are involved in the industry will know, but most people won't even know or care or realize. And it's like, okay, whatever.
Like a horse rearing its head up in the air, and its mouth is wide open. Yeah. Like, nah,
please don't show that.
Let's not use that, please.
Please don't show this.
And we were on that Tacova shoot. They wanted it was True Burson, and they wanted him like walking with a horse that was going back to the barn, and it was like a 2-year-old horse, and it was, it was fresh and all kind of stuff. And it started, and True was warming it up before we were shooting and all kind of stuff. And he reared up and did all this kind of stuff. And the video guy was, oh man, can you make him do that again? And I was like, no, we don't need that. Like that's for a whole different shoot. Like, and True was like, he kind of looked at me, and later he was like, dude, thanks for saying that. And I was like, yeah, man, like, we don't need any of that. Like they said what they wanted. So we're going to get that. We're not going to get any of that other stuff that's going on. So, just helping that,
just having you there as like an advisor would make it way better, because a lot of the people, they don't have a clue. Or, a lot of people aren't involved in the world, so they wouldn't know.
and get the right cowboy. Like that's what I said. They'll ask me, like a client always will say, hey, what about this or this? And I'm like, all right, what about this or this? And so I was like, let's ask the people that know what they're doing. And so it's, all right, and then let's put them in the right place. Let's get them doing this and doing that. So I mean, I think that would go along with, you see TV shows or anything like that, you have a lot of people that are in charge. And so that's where things kind of get like lost in translation. Like that person's in charge. And I run across it too. I run across a lot of people that, this is their first time to ever be in charge of something and they just steamroll it. And you're like, oh my gosh, like, I'd love to say something, but at the same time, it's like, how do I say it to be nice and not rude? And like, hey, all right, well, you did it that way. Let's do it this way. And let's see what we figure out. See who's not necessarily better, but which one works best.
Yeah. On our deal, I remember they were like, we want like some rough Texas, Texas country. So we went to a brush thicket and they were like, we can't see anything. Like, yeah, y'all wanted rough. This is rough right here.
You needed me to hold that camera and filming it while you guys were back up in there.
Yeah. That's when we ended up, that's what one of the cheesy things was like, there's a brush thicket next to some wheat fields. And so like that, we did a lot of filming in the wheat fields because it's really good for filming. But the whole time they're talking about like how rough and brushy Texas is and all this. And we're out in a wheat field and it's like, I guess most people don't know, but
we'll do the best we can.
Yeah. Yeah. It's different, but so like when you go to those ranches, are you like selling those pictures to companies or trying to set those brand deals up or something? Or are the ranches paying you sometimes or how's that work?
It's usually, it's pretty rare that like a ranch is like, hey, we'll pay you X amount of money to come out and shoot. I mean, there are times where that does happen, but for the most part, it's me being out there and doing it. And I might sell, I do a lot of fine art too. So if I know that like I can always get something that's maybe sellable. I can't always say, this, I'm going to go out today and I'm going to get something that's going to be on somebody's wall. Like I might think it's cool, but at the same time, I might go out and see, I'll take a lot of pictures, but I don't see anything that really like jumps out to me that says, wow, that deserves to be on somebody's wall. But I don't know, like there's a fine art aspect to it. There's the commercial side to it. And then there's just me out there being out there. And I just keep those three things in mind. I was out somewhere. I was at the 06 Ranch one time down in like Fort Davis Alpine. And a photographer walked up to me and he goes, you ever get bored doing this? And I was like, no, never once. And he was like, well, it's a branding. Like it happens like, same thing happens over and over and over. And I was like, yeah, but we're in a different set of pins. They're wearing something different. Something else is going to happen. And, the sun's going to be somewhere else. It might be dusty. It might not be dusty. It might be cloudy. It might not be cloudy. Like there's so many elements to this that it's never, ever boring to me. Like ever boring. And, that says something about, and I tried to help him. Like, I said all those things. Like I like there was stuff happening, and I came back to him later, and I was like, "Man, never ever is anything boring like that. Even, I might get bored at home, but I'm supposed to get bored at home.
Yeah.
But out there, no, getting horseback, seeing everybody having fun and kicking back, and or somebody might get bucked off, and
you have the same objective every time, but it's every situation so different.
Yeah. And like you got it. It was I'm blanking on who it is. Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin says, if you're doing the same thing every day, look at it like you're like a young person that's never done this before. And I try to have that mentality whenever I go somewhere. I've never done this before, and just set my mindset to, I'm going to open everything up and just don't be like, hey, I'm going to take pictures of just this. I'm going to take pictures of this whole thing that's happening here.
Yeah.
And because you have no idea what's going to happen. So it has to be fun. It has to be.
Yeah. It's definitely all perspective. Like you can lose that and it just ruins, ruins everything. Cause it's like, something happened that wasn't supposed to, and or whatever, get mad about it. The situation's not great or something. You zoom out and you're like, I could be sitting in an office, or I could be sitting at home. I could be not doing anything. It's like, this is way more fun than any of that. So you gotta be grateful for it.
Yeah, I just want to get a horseback. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go put some cows where they don't want to go.
Yeah. Or go experience, be around new people. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think that's a lot of this whole thing is meeting new people, being out there, putting yourself out there, meeting new clients. You might run across somebody that says, hey, I know so-and-so at such and such company, and they would, you guys would make a nice fit. I post a lot of stuff and I put my stuff in a lot of people's faces, but who am I to say that nobody's ever met me or anything like that? So, and people are like, it's been done before, and I was like, well, it hasn't been done through my eye. Mm-hmm. I haven't ever taken a picture of that before. And, I feel like, somebody roping or somebody getting horseback or somebody doing that, like I've never been there and stood in that spot and taken a picture. Same way with like another photographer coming out and there's a row of us photographers all sitting there in a line. Man,
everybody gets something different.
Everybody gets something different. We all have different ideas. We all have a different eye, different finger, all that kind of stuff. We're all using different cameras. I mean, there is in my mind, there's no competition because we're all here to do a certain thing. A lot of people get competitive when it comes to that kind of stuff, and that's cool. That keeps them going and stuff like that. But I don't get competitive when it comes to that.
And that's kind of how I feel about this. Like, there's only so many like cowboy influencer type people that have been on different podcasts, like Buster and Clint Anderson and Dale. Like, but I'm like, I'm not afraid to have them on or have them on. Even like Buster, we did a second one the other day. But I'm gonna ask different questions. Mm-hmm. I want to know different things than somebody else has already asked them. And even we went a year and then I asked a bunch of different questions and mindset questions, and there's so much stuff, and you could just keep going. Like, I could have Buster back so many times and we'd have something new every time,
Heck yeah.
But yeah, I feel the same way. Like, it's not, somebody else could, do a podcast with somebody. I could do the podcast with the same person. You should have two different kind of outcomes.
100%.
If we're both good at our craft anyway.
Yeah.
You've heard us talk about the LRP program on several episodes. It's a program that allows you to lock in prices to protect yourself from downside risk while allowing you open to upside gains in the cattle market. Cameron Floyd with Livestock Risk Services, based out of the Oklahoma City stockyards, specializes in this type of coverage. He's also a cowboy that lives it every day, so he can relate, and he enjoys helping other ranchers get the peace of mind knowing they're protected from the downside risk of the cattle market. It doesn't matter if you're a small producer or a large operator. If you're in the cattle business, Cameron can probably help you. They have options for cow-calf producers, stockers, and feeders. These programs are designed to protect you from down markets and allow you to create a business plan for your operation. There's no margin calls, no brokerage fees, no minimums, no upfront costs, and your premiums aren't due until the end of the endorsement period. And they're also tax deductible. This program can be a game changer. Go back to any of the episodes with the cattle guys, and we talk about how they use it to manage their risk. Contact Cameron Floyd with Livestock Risk Services at 918-604-1775. You can also check out the website, livestockriskservices.com, and there's also a quote tool on there. We'll put a link down below and Cameron's email down below. And remember, tell him you heard about him on the Wealthy Cowboy Show.
And I mean, you have no idea what mood everybody's in a good mood when they come and do a podcast, mm-hmm. But it's like, you and I didn't really sit down and get to know each other or anything like that. Some people, send me all the questions they're going to ask. And I'm like, I don't really want to read through all those. I'd rather just be kind of like this, where it's just open-ended and we're just here to just talk and hang out and figure each other out and ask questions and see where it goes, organically. I think that's where it's.
And then, like, if you come back again, we can talk about something completely different because we already know each other.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. Are you still, so you're kind of doing that on the ranch side? Do you still do some of those fashion deals too and stuff?
Yeah. And my worlds collide like like a Takova's job that has to do with, that's obviously clothing based, but it's my worlds collide right there. So it's, it's us working together. So, I mean, I don't like with every job out there with everybody, there's a lot of turnaround. So, a person that used to work at Yeti is now at a different company. So I treat everybody, nice and cordial and businessy and everything like that. And most of all my clients, I can text message or reach out to them very easily and very quickly. So, that's an aspect that I don't think was something back in the day. So that's what's great about today. But, my worlds do collide. I don't shoot a lot for JCPenney's too much anymore, but if they called, I would be like, heck yeah. I don't say, like I said, I don't say really no to anything.
Do you think, do you see any collision? I know like back in the day, and I think it's kind of coming around again, but like some of those like mainstream brands would run kind of a Western ad or something like that. Do you see some of that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I don't ever I would love it if all of them called me, but they call a lot of it. There's a lot of Western photographers out there that do a great job. So, I mean, and I get kind of a little bit like, I tell my clients, like, I'm a commercial photographer. Like, just because I shoot for one boot company doesn't mean I can't shoot for another boot company. Like, I get that. Not all the time, but it's like, like a beverage company, like, oh, you shoot for this beverage company. Why we can't have you shoot for this beverage company? Or, this guy's a model for this and we can't have him model for that. Yeah. And I'm like, you guys, like, it's it's a small world, but at the same time, it's like, why wouldn't you hire somebody that knows what they're doing? Yeah, I shot for the other beverage company, but I'm not going to shoot it the same way I shot it for y'all. Like, it's going to be different. We're going to get different people. We're going to be in a different location. We're going to get all kinds of different stuff. It's going to be completely different. Like you were saying with Buster, like Buster's probably a different person than he was a year ago. So yeah. I have grown as a photographer in a year. Like I've probably learned some tricks that maybe, or use something else. I have 2 different styles of camera I use, or, anything really.
Yeah. The same man doesn't cross the same river twice.
Yeah. I would hope that we're all striving forward and learning more and figuring things out and being better people every single day and just making that. And, if a client says, we don't want to use you for that, then it wasn't meant to be anyway. So, it's no skin off my back. Somebody else is going to call. So it's going to be fine.
Do you, when you're doing like a shoot like that, do you do like is it like a candid thing? I guess it's probably all different, but like, are you posing stuff more, or are you kind of just getting action shots?
It's kind of both. Like I have tons and tons of archived images that I kind of go at that I've, it's good for, especially like a cowboy that's not like a model, to be like, hey, here's this picture that we kind of want to start with, and then work your way from here. So I have tons of pictures on my phone that, I'm not copying it. I'm just saying we're starting from this standpoint. You know what I mean? Like let's start here and then let's move things around. So yes, it's a candid thing, like a Kurt Marcus photo that I love, or a Richard Avedon photo or something like that. That's like, here's where we're going to start, and then let's work our way out from here. Let's start here and then let's go from here and see what it turns out. And it's, yes, to go back to your question, there is some candid stuff, but at the same time, it's catching people in the moment while they're doing it. Like the picture that's on billboards for Takovas right now. I know I'm talking about a lot about Takovas, but it kind of blew up all at once. But that picture that I took is of Kai Fuston, Lek Fuston, True, and Whitney Fuston, and they're all 3 doing 3 different things. And Kai is sitting over there. It looks like he's talking to his horse. Lek is looking right at the camera, and True and Whitney are talking to each other, and they're actually like laughing and having a good time. And that's because I just walked up there and I just took the picture and I said, and I was like, wow, that I didn't at the time think that was really cool, but you go back to it and I'm like, wow, that's a great picture. And they're all 3 doing something else, but they also know that I'm doing my job and they're comfortable with being around me so they can just be themselves. Like, just do you guys' thing and, well, let's do this or let's do that. You guys ride down there, ride along that fence line, and then come back. We'll do that a couple of times. Or, the art director will be like, hey, what if we get, we need some tight shots of some boots or something like that. Let's ride past me, and I'll, my Canon is used for fast shutters, like a sports camera. So I can get like basically a stop motion as the horse is coming past me. So I might have you sit there to get some easy pictures like of the boot or the hat or whatever I'm shooting, but also let's get some action stuff. Let's get you guys working. So that's where the cowboy lifestyle of me hanging out with cowboys comes into effect, because I can pretty much figure out the right place to be without getting myself hurt or putting them in danger or anything like that, and kind of know, all right, this is the right place to be. So when I'm not out taking pictures, I'm also learning that and figuring all that out, like the good places.
You got to kind of be like Dennis Rodman, know where the ball's fixing to bounce to.
Yeah. And I don't cowboy for a living or anything like that, but it's pretty much common sense. It's, you're just watching the guy in front of you and you kind of at the first, at least me, I'm like, what are we doing here? And like, oh, within a couple of minutes, within a minute, you're like, okay, this is what we're doing. I'm in the right spot, or, I'm not in the right spot, so I need to be in the right spot. So you can, it's pretty easy. I mean, no, it's not, but I'm saying, like, for me to try to figure it out, I can figure it out pretty quickly.
Yeah. I think I remember that in like a Tom Morehouse interview. He's like, they asked him like the biggest thing or something. He's like, pay attention,
You're
this is old grumpy voice, man needs to pay attention,
And you do, like, you really got to pay attention to what's happening. And I remember, I was hanging out with True Burson and his, I think it was Teal, his oldest boy. And we were gathering in a wheat patch and all kind of stuff. And his boys at that time was probably like 5 or 6 or 7, or I don't know how old he was. And he was like, hey, what are we doing? What's this? Now, what's that? And just asking a million questions. So I was like, I just want to hang out with him every day because he asks all the questions that I want to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. If you ask him and be like, shut up. Don't come back.
Come on, photographer, come with us. And that happens. That happens too.
Just put your horse's head right here.
Yeah. Or I'll be out somewhere and I'll be next to somebody and he'll be like, hey, holler as loud as you can, like the whole time. And I'm like, okay, like in the gather and all kind of stuff. And so I'm like, cool, I'm hollering the whole time. I'm probably the only loud person out here, but he told me to holler the whole time. So if I'm being annoying, I'm sorry, you guys.
Yeah, you got to know.
Yeah. So it's all good.
Who've been some big mentors in your life?
Oh my goodness. I'd have to say that, Jeff Besner was probably the first one. He's almost, he's the most fun to be. All my buddies are so much fun to hang out with, but he was pretty much an art director on horseback, because he was like, hey, and come to find out, I didn't know what was going on that first time I went to the R.A. Brown Ranch, but they weren't even doing anything. He was just making things happen. He was like, hey, Slusher, what if you get over that hill and sit down there, and then we bring those cows to you, and you got the dust flying and all that kind of stuff. The sun's back there, and I was like, dude, that's great. So I would have to say Jeff Besner, Jason Pelham, used to be the ranch manager at the Spade Ranch up in around Canadian Miami. He's now retired and he works for himself now up in Oklahoma. I'd say that he would probably be my biggest mentor, because he's always got some wisdom. And he'd be like,
hold on, I need to write that down.
Yeah, I know. But he would always be like, Slusher, you just got to slow down. You just got to slow down. And I've taken that mentality for everything that I do. Like, there's a lot that, any cowboy can teach you. Either it's in the real world or horseback. And it's, if you can slow yourself down and just pay attention. I think that's what he meant by slowing down, is just pay attention. But I try to, and I don't know. Who are some other people? I don't know. Just all my buddies, that keep me in the loop and I keep them in the loop. I would say that, I don't know. You kind of think that mentors are older.
Yeah.
I think one of my mentors is my son. To be honest with you, he's 14 years old, and to see him get horseback is something. He's so relaxed. He doesn't get horseback all that much, but when he gets on his horse, he is just, you can tell he was built for it. And he knows the intuition of that horse. He's like, "Hey, Dad, do you notice that?" Because we ride the same horse, and he was like, "Do you notice when we're doing this, like, when we're out, in a, like Dr. Neerlands or something like that?" He's like, "You notice that he really likes to do that? And then, we'll get to do something else and he's real sticky." And I'm like, honestly, no. And that's him. The dude, kid's 14 years old, and he's not a cowboy, but he understands that. And he understands the intuition of that horse, the energy of that horse. And that's what I've learned in the last year, the energy that I put out, walking up to a horse and feeling that energy on that horse that you get on all the time. Like, if I'm having a bad day and you walk up, that horse is going to know it. You tell me if you think I'm right or wrong, but like, I think that horse can, you can't lie to a horse. That is one thing. So I even look up to my horse, to be honest with you. I think my horse is a mentor because, he's being like, "Hey, you can't do this. Yeah. Let's not do this." Yeah. And I'm like, "Let's do it though." So I think there's a lot to it. And I got that horse from Pelham. So, I think that has a lot to do with it as well. Like, I just, I don't buy a horse from just anybody. Like, I bought a 2-year-old, I think you actually know him, Josh Beavers. Mm-hmm. He and I kind of went on a horse, and he's riding it and stuff like that. And so, he's another mentor that I kind of look up to. Tyler Terry's another person that, just all my buddies I think are all mentors. I can learn from all of them, and hopefully they can take something that I have and learn from it too. I don't know what I bring to the table, but I think
something.
Maybe some, I don't know. I forget the guy's name, but I've been reading his book. It's the owner of the Diamond Cross Ranch. He's a horse trainer. Grant something. I'm blanking on his name, but it's a really good book. Yeah. I've never read a book about training horses, and it's not really about training horses. It's more about taking what you learn from a horse and put it into your day-to-day life. It's a really good book.
Yeah, you can learn something from anybody, anywhere, different situations. And like, if you're trying to learn, you're probably going to learn something.
Yeah.
If you're seeking, if you're seeking knowledge, seeking to learn, seeking opportunity, that stuff's going to find you. So it doesn't matter if it's from your kids or whatever. You can learn from anybody.
Yeah. I started talking up to my horse too, and it's probably me, but I started like being positive around, you kind of get, you're like, you're doing something, or he stumbles or he does something, and you're like,
cuss him a little bit.
Yeah, cuss him a little bit. And you're like, all right, if somebody was cussing me, I probably wouldn't like it either. Yeah. So I took that mentality like last, little over a year. And that was a game changer too. Yeah. He's a whole different horse.
I'll have to try that. Shady gets on me about that sometimes.
It's true. I think it is. A horse trainer would probably be like, yeah, that's, I'm not a horse trainer. I'm just trying to make.
For sure. I see it in my life and hers, and like, we both like favor different horses, and how much of it is just your attitude when you go to it is compared to like if you really like the horse and you just expect to have a good day.
Yeah. And you pulled me out of here and you expect me to go to work and you got a bad attitude. I'm probably going to buck you off because you got a bad attitude. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Probably. What's the coolest ranch you've been on?
If you're in the livestock business, you probably use a hot shot, and it seems like they're always either broke or dead when you need one. Hercules Ag has solved that problem. I got one of their hot shots when it first came out, and I still haven't even had to charge it or anything, and it works every time. I just got my second one in, and I got a little short shaft on it to leave it to shoot. They have several different options for shafts to fit whatever needs you need from long to short. They also have the 50 milliliter repeater syringes, and it comes with different color ends, so you know which medicine goes in which syringe, which is a big hassle. Check out HerculesAg.com today to order yours or to see about becoming a dealer, and use discount code CC10 at checkout for 10% off your order.
Gosh. I'd say, I don't know. The coolest ranch I've ever been on is all of them, but just because not everybody gets invited to certain ranches. You know, like the Dixon Creek was a bucket list, and that was something that was like I really, really wanted to see that country, and be around those cowboys, because those are great cowboys to be around. The 06 Ranch, I've been on there a couple of times, and that is just really historic. I mean, to see that land and to see that, I mean, there's rocks underneath rocks there. My horse didn't last 10 minutes. And so, I don't know. I would have to say, and I'm sad to say that those are all Texas-based. I'm an Oklahoma boy, so anytime I get to go into like the Pawhuska area or something like that, that's like, I call that like my native grassland. I think that would be, I've been on a couple of ranches up there, like to be around the Flint Hills of Kansas. I mean, that's God's country in my mind. I think that's in my mind, but I mean, I've been on the backside of the Hearst Ranch. We just did some trail riding over there, but to see that on the central coast of California, I mean, there was, like Indian artifacts. You'd be riding along, and all of a sudden you'd see a rock that was just dug out for a bowl, and you're like, wow, I didn't even think
a lot of history.
Yeah, just a lot of history, and just any time that somebody takes the time to tell you about the history of this ranch, or to see all that kind of stuff, I think you can't take that for granted, because I get comments all the time that it's so cool that you get to do what you do, because you get to see the way so many other people do it and the different ways that people do it. We went one time in New Mexico, we went to where they shot where the little cabin is in Lonesome Dove. That was in New Mexico around Angel Fire, and we went there, and that cabin, I don't think the cabin's still there, but that was where they shot that I guess it's like a lake, but it's part of a small pond, and there's grass and the hills and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where it was in Montana. That was pretty cool to see that. But I don't know. What's your favorite ranch you've ever been to?
I don't know. The next one, maybe.
I know, right?
I like the I like out there, like Alpine area, the mountains. I've never ranched out there, but I've been out there, and I just like the mountain. There's something about mountains, that are really cool. Just wild, I guess.
So a place that hasn't, I don't know, like somebody said one time I was listening, and they were like, we're going to turn this whole ranch into like a hot wire fence. And I was like, that doesn't sound fun at all. You know what I mean? Or like, we're all going to get 4-wheelers now or something like that, or side by sides. And we're going to do this all by drone. Like any of that stuff, I don't want to be a part of.
Yeah.
Like the way that it was always done, I want to take pictures of that, and I want to see it. Yeah, a drone's cool for some things and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've been hunting cows with drones. Like if we're going to catch one wild one or something, I'll fly it around.
It does its job.
You're still not going to find them as easy. If they're out in the open, you can find them. But we hunt it with dogs. It's still 100 years ago. It's the same thing,
Yeah, you have to do what you have to do. Like a couple of my buddies, like I don't want to go and work for a ranch that I have to drive a tractor on. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, if you owned your own ranch, you'd probably have your own tractor.
Yeah.
So you'd probably need to ride.
Yeah, you need to learn that.
Yeah, you probably have to drive that tractor. I mean, yeah, it's not being horseback, but it's still. I always had that mentality whenever I was coming up as a photo assistant. I wasn't running it like it was my business, but I was running it like I put out that much effort to make it mine. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not trying to take this person's job. by any means, but I have the wherewithal to know that if I put my best effort out and to be the best that I can be, then it's going to pay forward. So that's I'm trying to relate it to a cowboy that doesn't want to get on a tractor and drive a tractor.
Treat it like your own.
Yeah. Like if I'm going to go work for this ranch, or if I'm going to go work at McDonald's, I'm going to treat this McDonald's like it's my McDonald's. Like I'm going to pick up that trash. I'm going to do all the things that I need to do to make this a cohesive working place that makes it best for everybody.
Yeah.
So I just have try to have that mentality.
And that leads to success no matter where you're at. Yeah.
Hopefully.
And then just the general wrap up question: what's your favorite restaurant in all your world travels?
I think that's a tough one. Favorite restaurant.
Could be the easiest or the hardest question of the show.
Yes. I would have to say that if I was put to the test, that I would eat Asian food for the rest of my life.
Really?
And so, Thai food, sushi, pho or ramen or something like that. I'm going to go with that is my favorite food. Don't get me wrong. I eat steak all the time. I eat beef every day and I love it. And I would, but I can probably, there's actually, you know what? There it is. Perini Ranch in Buffalo Gap. That's my favorite restaurant.
That's a really good one.
Oh my God. That's the best. It doesn't get any better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that Sunday, during the Western Heritage, man, to go there for brunch, oof, so good. That's the first place I ever had a ranch water too.
Yeah.
They had a ranch water before anybody else had a ranch water. I'd have to say that. I'd have to say Perini. What's yours?
Dang, now that you bring that, I always think like Fort Worth based, but like you bring that one up, that one's really good. If we're up here a lot, we go to, Del Frisco's. I've gotten to where I like just to eat at home a lot now. Mm-hmm. So you can make a really good steak at home.
Yeah, you can.
But yeah, going out. I don't know. It's more about who you go with and kind of the experience, being in a good, cool atmosphere and the environment.
I'm down with that.
How can everybody find you? Instagram, is that your main?
Instagram, Slusher Photo is a good place. I have a website, Scott Slusher Photography, or you can Google me, Scott Slusher. I think there's only one Scott Slusher photographer. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying I'm the best or anything like that. I'm just saying when you Google Scott Slusher, there's only one photographer.
Yeah. And you're always looking for opportunity to go take pictures somewhere.
Always.
Some ranch work or cowboy work somewhere.
Yeah. Please reach out if you got any ideas or anybody's got anything. So yeah, you can DM me, or I think my phone number's out there on the Googles as well. So you can call me.
If you dig long enough, you can find anything on anybody pretty much.
Yeah. Don't judge me because I live in Dallas.
Yeah. Well, it's not too far from Fort Worth, I guess.
I keep my horse in Weatherford. And then, like I said, Josh Beavers has another one of my horses in Kansas. So I'm out and about all the time. And I love sitting in, I don't love it, but I will sit in some traffic to get where I have to go to be in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
is my goal.
It's so much fun when you go west and like you're just driving. Nobody's on the road. It's a good road. You drive 85 or whatever. No, there's nobody out there.
It's great. I love it. But at the same time, it's like it's funny because I'd keep my horse on the east side of Dallas, and then I switched because it doesn't make any sense because I'm always going west for everything. Yeah, and it just took an hour or maybe 2 hours out of my day to just go get my horse. But he would, once we got close to like traffic, I'd be sitting somewhere and my trailer would shake and he would turn his butt around so his butt, because sometimes I'd slam on the brakes and he'll bump his head on the front of that trailer, so he turns himself around now.
You got it figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, y'all go check out Scott on Instagram, whatever, and reach out to him if you got some Brandons coming up this spring or whatever. I'm sure he'd love to come take pictures and like I always like to look back at that stuff, and it's memories, and he can make some cool ones. So y'all reach out to him and check out his work, and we'll see y'all next time.
Awesome.
A mastermind has the sole purpose of getting you further, faster, and that's exactly what we're doing with the Wealthy Cowboy Show Mastermind. It is for the person that's ready to start out building their business or someone just looking to get their business to the next level. We will have live Q&A calls that you can ask past and future guests questions that relate specifically to you. You'll also hear ideas and be able to network with people that could open you up to a completely different way of thinking that could change your life. Click the link below if you're looking to go to the next level in business and in life.